Red Shellman.
I pinch.
Hello everyone, and welcome to Bad Endings in Video Games, the Expansion Pass. Yes, I've decided to make a series out of this. Mostly because ever since I uploaded my Bad Endings in Video Games iceberg, I've seen more and more bad endings. People have commented more about them, and it's just, they never end. So frankly, for one, it's good content. But for two, I just like talking about them a lot. Y'all seem to like it, so why not? So in this video, I have 7 more bad endings to share with you in video games. I'm going to go into a lot more detail on these, so I hope you enjoy it. I put a lot of hard work into it. So if you liked the video, please hit the like button and subscribe. Of course, if you dislike it, you already know what to do. Hit that dislike button as hard as you can, but then leave me a comment letting me know why. Because how am I going to know if you don't tell me? Please. Anyway, I hope you enjoy the video. You don't have to watch the iceberg to watch this, but I recommend that you do, and I recommend you check out the DLC video I added. So now, welcome to Bad Endings in Games, the Expansion Pass. The Walking Dead, A New Frontier. So in case you don't remember, The Walking Dead used to be just an absolutely phenomenal franchise, and I believe it's still going. It started with a graphic novel / comic series, and then became a worldwide hit when it went to AMC on television, becoming just a huge success. I love the show. Of course, it fell off after the big time skip, I believe at least. There were also video games made of it, of course, but the game didn't really have anything to do with the show or the graphic novel, and the game is really good. I mean, the first game in the series is considered by many to be just a masterpiece in storytelling, and I would agree with that. I give it a 10 out of 10. It stars Lee, a criminal on his way to prison before the outbreak occurs, the Walker outbreak. Yeah, they're called walkers instead of zombies, probably due to copyright, but anyway. And Clementine, a young girl which he takes under his wing and protects and becomes a surrogate father figure for. The game is just amazing. The gameplay is kind of lacking. It's more of an interactive movie, if anything, or a visual novel, but that's okay if the story's good enough, and this story is awesome. There were a number of sequels and spin-offs. I don't believe any of them ever captured the magic of the first game, though they're all pretty good. The third game, A New Frontier, is the topic of this entry because while they all have bad endings, A New Frontier has a unique one in my opinion that I think deserves to be talked about. Now in most of these games, a bad ending, you just sorta die. You fail a quick time event or made the wrong choice and your character dies and it just cuts to red saying, game over. So you can imagine what happens. In A New Frontier, you play as Javier, a newcomer to this series, who is trying to protect his now blended family from the outbreak. It's been a couple of years since this happened, and he's been on the road ever since. Along with Javier is his brother's wife, Kate, and his brother's 2 children, Mariana and Gabe. So you can already tell this is a blended family. Later on in the game, you do meet up with David, and of course there's some drama that ensues as you've been traveling around with his wife and kids for years. Javier fights to protect his family and the people closest to him. Later on in the game, of course, Clementine also makes an appearance and plays a huge role, now a grizzled teenager and someone you don't want to mess with. Now, depending on how the story goes, you can lose one or all of your family members. I believe the only 2 characters that are guaranteed to make it to the end are Javier and Clementine if you play the game right. Of course, the bad endings involve you losing some of your family members, and to say anything more about these bad endings would spoil the story. The story is this game's bread and butter, so I'm going to stay away from that. But there is one bad ending that's unique, as I've said before. Normally, when you fail a mission, a quick time event, or a cutscene, it just cuts to red saying game over. However, there's one in which when Javier fails a quick time event, it actually keeps going. It goes on for like a full minute. Javier gets attacked by a walker, bitten, and then Gabe comes to the rescue, saving him. The game, like I said, goes on for a few seconds as Javier lays there dying. He says his final words to Gabe, and it actually fakes you out. If you got this ending the first time, you might actually think that, holy crap, Javier's actually dying, and now I'm going to play as Gabe or Clementine or something. But after this, it cuts to red saying game over. I think this is just really cool. It's sort of like Chrono Trigger in that the game makes you think maybe this was scripted or maybe it was supposed to happen, but I don't know. I really like this ending because it's pretty emotional. It's tragic yet heartwarming. In fact, that's kind of the theme of all of the games. It's really good. I recommend you check it out. Like I said, to talk more about it would be to spoil the story, which would spoil the entire experience. So if you're looking for a good story and trust me, it has nothing to do with the show or the graphic novel. So if you're not a fan of those, don't worry about it. But if you're looking for a good story, I recommend checking it out. Although it's more for visual novel / interactive movie fans. You won't find a lot of good gameplay here, but to me, that's alright. Anyway, let's move on.
Go. So, Kate.
Where am I? Goblins attacking men and elves. What's this? Well, Baggins, you've dreamt your way into this. You'll have to dream your way out.
The Hobbit was a game made in 2003, and unfortunately, you may not have played it because it's amazing, and I don't see many people talking about it. I remember playing this when I was a lot younger and thinking that this was great. And this game pretty much has it all. It has stealth, it has platforming, puzzles, combat. Well, the combat's probably one of the weaker areas of the game, but other than that, it's a lot of fun. It's based on the novel written by J.R.R. Tolkien way back in 1937, which is just, wow, I didn't even know it was that old. That's pretty crazy. Now, this game follows the events of the book, starring Bilbo Baggins once again, as he goes on an adventure with a bunch of dwarves and Gandalf. And, well, if you haven't read the book or seen the movie or played the game, I don't need to get too much into it, but yeah, it's a good little adventure story. Well, I say little, but all of these books are pretty long. In this game, you go on the adventure, and you even get to use the One Ring itself, which I don't think you get to do in any other Lord of the Rings game. Although, it's really not even made out to be that big a deal, as a lot of enemies can pretty well see through it and or are able to know when you're close enough by. One thing I will warn you about with this game is that if you have arachnophobia, you might not want to play it, obviously. It's got a lot of spiders in it. Like, too many spiders. Even I get a little freaked out when I play through that level again. Anyway, what about the bad ending here? Well, there's quite a bit, actually. It's not really story related, like it's just game overs. But there's quite a few times in the game where you can fail, mess up, and get a bad ending. And a lot of them have stuck with me throughout the years as something that, like, kind of creeps me out. Probably the goofiest one is in the beginning when Bilbo's trying to reach the dwarves at the end in order to start his adventure, but he has to first gather some supplies. He goes to one of his neighbor's berry farm, and he has to sneak around the bushes to avoid the farmer. Now, I thought this was weird at first, like why is he sneaking around, but then I realized it when I got caught. When you get caught, your neighbor just talks to you, and he just goes on, and you get a game over screen. So I guess he just talks your ear off for too long and the dwarves just leave, which is just kind of silly. But there's plenty others, like getting caught by the trolls, getting caught by the goblins. But probably the one that stuck with me throughout the years is the one in which Bilbo is trying to save the dwarves from the elves. And if Bilbo gets caught by the elves, he gets thrown in jail. And he just gets the most, I guess, saddest cutscene I've ever seen, where Bilbo's like literally crying. I mean, this poor man has just been caught. He's all alone, and God knows when he'll be able to escape or whatever. Obviously, this isn't the way it's supposed to go down, but if you play the game, you know what I mean. Basically, if you don't want a bad end, just don't fail. It's really not that hard, but again, it will take you a good amount to complete the game. Anyway, check it out if you can. I don't know how you can, but check it out. It's a lot of fun, and I recommend it. But let's move on.
pathetic they are. I don't have time for these humans.
Now, we're not here to judge the quality of these games, nor do I recommend them all. I just want to talk about some bad endings that I personally remember or have been recommended to talk about, and this is one of them. There's actually a pretty unique bad ending here, but before we get into that, Shadow the Hedgehog was a game released in 2005 starring Sonic's now main rival, Shadow the Hedgehog. Shadow is actually one of the most powerful beings in the Sonic universe in that not only is he one of the few able to use modern weapons and vehicles, but he's the only one actually allowed to swear.
Where's that damn fourth Chaos Emerald?
Yeah, they tried to go super edgy with this one, and it's pretty cringe. Look, the game is not very good. I was really disappointed when I bought it as a teenager. The story doesn't make a lot of sense. It's just not a good game, but it's worth checking out if you're a hardcore Sonic fan, I guess. And there's multiple endings in this one, which is unique. Now, there's only one true canon ending that unlocks after you get all the other endings, which can be annoying. In this game, you play as Shadow, and you're trying to figure out the events of your past. Shadow has amnesia due to the events of Sonic Adventure 2 Battle. And as he's trying to figure things out, aliens begin to invade Mobius, and Shadow is then approached by the leader of these aliens who seems to know him pretty well. So Shadow, feeling like he has no other choice, decides to head off on his adventure where he can choose to either help the aliens and take over the world, help Sonic and the humans and fight back against the aliens, or help himself to the Chaos Emeralds. Either way, you play through the game making decisions on who you want to help, and that leads you down a story tree to get to a certain ending. Again, a lot of it doesn't make a lot of sense. These endings mostly include you fighting off the aliens and defeating the leader, and therefore the world being saved, or you helping the aliens and fighting off Sonic and the humans, and therefore the Earth being doomed, or you fighting Eggman for some reason. I mean, he's in the game, he's kind of inconsequential, but a lot of the story revolves around fighting him for some reason. Anyway, one of these endings is unique, though, as after Shadow defeats the leader of the aliens, he comes to a realization that his existence is nothing but pain and destruction for everybody around him. It's pretty grim and pretty real. He just sort of stands there with the Chaos Emeralds and it's like, I should have never been born. And it's pretty dark and sad and grim. But then it's immediately ruined by Vector the Crocodile's ridiculous voice acting. Anyway, I don't recommend this game, obviously, but, I mean, it could be worth checking out, I guess. Nah, let's move on.
Finally, I've got all the Chaos Emeralds.
Shadow, this isn't over yet. The Black Arms will rise again.
I am Shadow the Hedgehog, a research experiment gone deadly wrong. I've caused so much destruction. I should never have been created. This is who I am.
Hey, don't go there! Yet, things may not be what they seem. You could be. Find the computer room!
Zombi U was released in 2012 as a Wii U launch title. If you don't remember the Wii U, it's one of Nintendo's failed consoles, but I really liked it. Made sense to me, but whatever, the Switch is a lot better. Anyway, later it was released as just Zombie as a port on the PlayStation, Xbox, and PC, but I really liked the original game. It's unique in that, well, it's not unique. It's just a basic zombie survival story. Yes, there is some plot, there is some background, but for the most part, there's no big conspiracy. You're not fighting giant monsters. You're just some guy who's trying to survive. You see that character in the opening cutscene? Yeah, that's you. However, this game features a permadeath system. Well, what does that mean? Well, basically, if your character dies, that's it. you take over as some other character and you can encounter your previous player as a zombie and then take back your stuff, which is pretty cool. So in this game, you're guided by somebody known as the Prepper, who is shown to be a crazy conspiracy theorist, but you do get the sense that he does have your best interest at heart, though he is extremely paranoid. Throughout the game, you meet certain different characters, you do find a cure for the zombie outbreak. However, towards the end of the game, you find out that the place you're playing in, which is London, by the way, is about to get firebombed and you have to escape. The Prepper doesn't like this, and he berates you and scolds you and then kicks you out of his safe house. It's at that point you reach the final mission and you have to reach the helicopter to escape. Now, the thing is, there's a permadeath system like I said earlier. So guess what? The bad ending. If you die between the beginning of that mission and the end of it, if you're killed by zombies, or if you're like me and accidentally just fall, guess what? The game ends. You get the bad ending. And what's worse, you're not even allowed to retry it. You have to start the entire game over from the beginning, which is absolutely frustrating, but it's also incredibly realistic when you think about it. You don't get a second chance. There's no save file. What are you talking about? And that's what makes this game unique to me. It's realistic. When you hit zombies, it feels like you're hitting a zombie. You're beating someone to death with a cricket bat or whatever else. And on top of that, while you do have a health bar, you can get killed in one shot by a zombie if you're bitten, and then you take over as, again, some other person. It could be a male, a female, different races. It doesn't matter. You name it. I really thought this was a cool game, but the ending is just, it's too frustrating and punishing, man. But anyway, check it out for yourself if you can still play it. I thought it was pretty cool. I thought the Wii U was pretty cool. I think I'm pretty cool sometimes, but I've been known to be wrong about all three. Anyway, let's move on.
You blew it, schmuck.
Says Maker 2 on the MS-DOS and multiple other platforms, and remade and remastered. It's kind of a cult classic. Now, you may have heard about this because of the unbelievable endings. I mean, this is one of those games that's like a Japan, what are you doing kind of moments. Let me give you the plot, right? So it starts in a world being overrun by the Demon King, and of course the main hero, your character, has to fight back and save the world. But that's not the game. No, that's not what you do. That happens before the game. What happens is you win and you're awarded by the kingdom a salary and a home to live in. And then after the fact, the gods themselves deliver unto you a child for you to raise at age 10. I can't help but think this is someone's incel fantasy, like getting to have children without having to go through a woman to get it, which is just kind of creepy and weird. But anyway, now I do want to say I'm not judging you if this is your favorite game or if you like this game. I know it is a cult classic and it is very unique and it's very intricate and impressive what they were able to accomplish. I'm just saying some of these endings are weird, and once I explain it to you why it's weird, you may rethink it. So anyway, I tried to play this game myself a while back, and I personally had a hard time figuring it out. There must have been a manual or a guide or something that came with the game, but I also just didn't have the patience for it. And my daughter in my game ended up running away from home after a little while because I worked her too hard. So I guess I don't know what the hell I'm doing raising children. But in this game, yeah, you raise your child. So what you're doing is setting her schedule, setting her up for classes, telling her what to do, sending her on adventures and quests, stuff like that. And that's the main gameplay of this game. Now, there are some adventure segments where you take control of her directly, and there's even some combat segments which are very impressive, I do gotta say. And you do this over the course of her 8 years until she becomes an adult. So here's where the endings come in, and they are wild. So there's at least, I believe, over 70 endings this game can take, right? Not only does it matter what you do in the game, how she ends up or what she ends up doing, but there's also a route that you can influence who she ends up marrying in the end, okay? So possibly the best ending you can get is raising her and she becomes queen of the nation. This is a pretty big deal, you understand. Now, she can also become all sorts of different things like an adventurer and a harlot. Yeah, so let's get into the bad endings. Okay, so she can become a prostitute if you screw up, and she can become a barmaid, which is, much less worse. And finally, possibly one of the worst endings is she can become an S&M dommy mommy. Just what in the hell? You can raise your daughter so poorly that she ends up being a dominatrix. Now, many of you that are very open-minded out there might say, hey, her body, her choice, right? And fair enough, but just keep in mind, all of her decisions are based on you, the player, raising this little girl. So it just becomes a little strange and a little weird, right? Not only that, let's talk about her marriage candidates. There are several of them, but possibly the worst one, at least in my opinion, the worst one is she can actually fall in love with you, the player, her father, right? So, and this is very unusual, very strange. The gods themselves say it's all good. The people in the game say it's all good. But I mean, really think about this. You're playing it, you're controlling it, you're influencing her decisions. So when you really boil it down, you're taking this little girl and grooming her until she's legally able to consent to marriage and then other things, which I'm sorry, that's a line in the sand for me. I think it's just way too weird, right? That's something else. So that's possibly the worst ending. But wait, there's more, because not only can she become, a prostitute and marry her father, but she can end up being the Princess of Darkness. Yeah, if you screw up raising her, I believe it's like you send her out on quests too much, she actually ends up falling into the world of demons and becoming the new demon queen. And she becomes the most terrifying force the world has ever seen. And yeah, that's terrible and that's awful. And the gods scold you for it, and that's the end of the game. So again, I know it's a cult classic, I know it's very impressive for the time, and I get it's probably being unfairly judged, but I mean, based on what I think about it, the fact that you are the one making the decisions for her, if you lead her down a path that ends up marrying you, I think that's just a little bit over the line. So yeah, it's got bad endings in it. I would say check it out for yourself, but maybe don't, actually. There is a remake, though. I think it took out a lot of the fan servicey stuff, so check it out if you want. But we're gonna move on. Alright, so in case you thought a game on the MS-DOS was going to be the most obscure on this list, how about a bad ending that takes place on a Tamagotchi? That's right. Welcome to Evatchi. So right off the bat, I do want to say sorry, this one's going to be more of a slideshow because for one, I don't want to show clips from the show, and for two, there's not really a lot of gameplay footage I can get due to the nature of what a Tamagotchi is. So in case you don't know, a Tamagotchi was a pocket toy that was released in the early 90s, and it's really more of just a keychain, but it's a little pet on there, and you're supposed to take care of it. If you don't take good enough care of it, it goes away. Tamagotchi roughly translates to egg watch. Now, a lot of people seem to think it means friend, but that's Tomodachi. Now, I don't blame you for getting confused. I do believe this was probably intentional. But anyway, you get a bad ending in that if you just don't take care of your pet. Now you might think, well, that's kind of boring, right? Well, wait till you get into Evatchi. So Evatchi, you take care of an angel. Now I have to give you some lore on Neon Genesis Evangelion. I'm going to be brief as possible. I know when people say that, they mean grab a snack. It's going to be about 20 minutes, but I promise for the sake of brevity, I'll be quick. So Neon Genesis Evangelion, the basic plot is The agents of NERV, which are a paramilitary organization in Japan, are trying to fight back against angels, which are aliens from space, although not really, that are coming down to destroy the Earth, although not really. Their main goal is to make contact with Lilith, which is a being that NERV has captured and is set underground. If angels make contact with Lilith, it'll trigger something known as Third Impact. Now, the first and second impact in the lore of the show were very, very catastrophic events, right? Kind of like the Colossal Titan transforming in Attack on Titan, if you know what I'm talking about. So we really want to prevent that, okay? That's the basic plot of the show, is that NERV is trying to fight back using Evangelions, which are mechs, although not really, and that's it. So the show is really good. If you haven't seen it yet, what are you doing? What are you doing with your life? I mean, paying bills, taking care of your family, screw all that. Go watch Evangelion. It's really good. Now, what does this have to do with this Tamagotchi? Well, let me explain. In 2020, yes, believe it or not, this is the newest game on this list, Evatchi was released. And believe me, there's so many Evangelion products, it'll blow your mind. There's so many obscure Evangelion games that I could just talk about bad endings in those for an entire video. So, Evatchi is a Tamagotchi where you take care of an angel. Now, why you would want to do that, I have no idea. But there's a good and a bad ending here. Yes, and it goes beyond just taking care of or not taking care of your pet. So, in the bad ending, quote unquote, the angel isn't properly raised, and at the end of it, NERV agents come in and execute this angel, your pet. Now you might say, well, that's actually a good ending because angels are bad, right, in this universe. Now the good ending, according to Evatchi, you take care of your angel properly, you raise it right, and it goes on to thank you before maturing and then leaving to create the Third Impact, presumably killing billions of people. Now, why on earth this is the good ending, I have no idea. I guess if you're an outside observer, it's not a big deal, but to the world of Evangelion, you just slaughtered a whole bunch of people, and that's the good ending on this little keychain toy. So, think about that. Man, talk about obscure bad endings. This one's just crazy. Anyway, if you're a super fan of Evangelion, you could probably import it. And if you're a super fan or collector of Tamagotchis, you could probably import it, so have fun with that. Anyway, let's move on.
That's basically the game, more or less the game. It's very quick to complete. It's less than a week, which is fairly on brand for the Nanos.
I just want you to know that if I wanted to, I could make an entire bad endings video on visual novels alone. There are quite a few of them, and this one in particular always stuck out to me. Welcome to Sound of Drop, Fall into Poison. This is an obscure visual novel released in 2014, and you can find it on Steam today, although you might want to wait till it goes on sale, personally. I really like this one because I'm a huge fan of aquatic life. I'm a huge fan of aquariums, the ocean. I mean, hell, look at my channel icon. I like crabs. So, what is this visual novel about? Well, it's a horror visual novel. It stars Mayumi and Himeno, two school friends that go to investigate a haunted aquarium, and really bad things happen, of course. Now, at first it is shown to be haunted, but there's a lot of sci-fi elements that come into play later on, and to be frank, when it comes to visual novels, the story is everything. So if I spoil too much, there'll be no reason for you to go and check it out yourself, right? I'm not a reviewer. I don't do reviews. I'm more of an advertiser. So if this is something you think you might like, feel free to check it out. I think it's worth it. Anyway, we're here to talk about bad endings. In this game alone, there's over 30 endings, and I believe only 4 of them are good or neutral. The rest are bad. It's very difficult to avoid getting a bad ending at all. Trust me, some of the choices that seem innocuous will end up having your character, unfortunately, expire. Plays Mayumi, a young schoolgirl that has a particular history with this aquarium, and she goes to it with her friend Himeno, and shortly after this, they get separated and really bad things start to happen. Now, there's so many bad endings, like I said. One of them involves you getting melted by acidic frogs. Another one involves one of the other aquarium patrons attacking you and presumably doing some bad things to you. Yeah, it's not for the faint of heart, but there's two bad endings in particular that always stuck with me. They may not be the worst bad endings, but these are the two that I choose to talk about. The first bad ending I want to talk about, Mayumi finds herself alone in a jellyfish exhibit, and the tanks start to burst, and jellyfish and water start to flood the room. Now, you get two choices as Mayumi. You can either run through and try to get away, or just stand still. I don't know why you would stand still, but if you choose to run away, this is not a good idea, because Mayumi almost immediately slips in the water and starts to get stung by these jellyfish and paralyzed, so she can't move. Also, she starts to talk about her underwear getting soaked, which is just okay. So as she's being repeatedly stung, she begins to become paralyzed and she can't move, although she feels an unbelievable amount of pain, and water fills the room, so not only can she barely move, but she's also drowning at the same time while she's in pain from being stung by all these jellyfish, which is absolutely horrible to think about. And I'm sorry if you have a fear of the ocean, but here you go. As this is all happening, she just goes on and on for minutes at a time thinking about how she's in pain and how she wants to escape. And you begin to think, oh, maybe there's some way she'll get out of this. But no, it just goes into all this detail until she finally, presumably, passes away. But then after she passes out, she awakens to see an unusual sight. She can't really see straight, but she sees her friend walking around looking for her in this jellyfish exhibit. She looks on curiously and seems to have no idea what's going on, and then the screen fades out saying bad end. So what happened? Well, I'm not exactly sure, but one of two things could have happened. Either A, she passed on and is now haunting the jellyfish exhibit, or B, somehow or another the sci-fi haunted nonsense happened and she became a jellyfish herself, which is just absolutely unsettling. Now, the next bad ending I want to talk about involves Mayumi and Himeno, her friend. So, as I mentioned before, they went to the aquarium together, but then they got separated due to the sci-fi haunted mumbo-jumbo that's going on. So later on, if Mayumi survives many of these bad endings that could happen to her, she runs into Himeno finally, but Himeno does not look good. She's sitting down in a lot of pain. As it turns out, Himeno is actually infested with nematodes that are eating her inside out, and she's in a lot of pain. She's bleeding out of her mouth. I mean, it's just a horrible sight to behold. This is Mayumi's best friend, so she's absolutely horrified. Mayumi then has a choice to make. She can either run away and try to get help from somewhere, or she can sit there with Himeno and comfort her as Himeno passes away. Now, this is just really sad. They do hint at a relationship between the two, which is just nice, but also it's pretty wholesome. They're really close friends, and Mayumi feels super guilty about all this. So Mayumi can choose to sit there and comfort her as she dies. The screen cuts to black and she just talks about how much she's gonna miss her and how sad she is. Meanwhile, the nematodes are escaping from Himeno's mouth and are moving on to Mayumi and are slowly eating her too, but at this point Mayumi just sort of gives up and lets it happen. And so the two of them just sort of get eaten alive and pass away together, which is just kind of tragic and sad, but also somewhat heartwarming. This is a bad ending, of course. This isn't supposed to happen, but I don't know. This one always stuck with me because it is romantic in a way, right? Despite the body horror and gore and, violence that's happening. This is a interesting game. I really liked it when I played it. Again, it's not going to be for everyone. You might want to check it out if you're a fan of visual novels. I don't see a lot of people talking about it, and I love talking about obscure games on this channel, so I really wanted to talk about this one. So anyway, with that, we'll move on. Well, thank you all so much for watching. That's it for the expansion pack of Bad Endings in Games Iceberg. I am going to make this a series, so if you think of a bad ending I've missed so far and you want to see it featured in a video, comment it below. I might add it. I've already got a list that I'm going down, and I'll get down it eventually. Anyway, again, thank you so much for your likes, subscriptions, your comments, and your dislikes if you didn't like it. Just comment and let me know what you didn't like about it, and I'll work on it. Anyway, thank y'all once again. Check out the full iceberg. Check out the last video. Just check out everything. I love you all so much. Y'all take care.